and welcome to another episode of the Afterburners podcast. It is April 24th, 2018. You're probably listening to this on Wednesday, April 25th, 2018. Guys, 2 days away from the NFL draft. You getting excited, Bobby?
It's hard to get excited when there's so many rumors about the Giants drafting Saquon. Don't get me wrong, I think he's a great player, but if people look at my pinned tweet, they knew that I was going to do a dance to celebration if the Giants drafted Josh Rosen. So I'm a little bummed right now. I'm not going to lie. I think the Giants should trade out or take a quarterback. And I don't know. I'm getting really scared, guys.
Mike, you got any plans for the draft?
Probably just drink some Mill Street beer, watch it, and hopefully the Saints do something productive with like the 27th pick or whatever it is, 27th, 28th.
You're not going to have that blue?
No Labatt Blue. Not this week anyway. Well, we're repping some Mill Street. The reps hooked me up, so it's been a pretty good couple days.
I don't have any plans. I don't even know if I'm going to watch the draft. I might stream it, but I don't have cable. Maybe I'll just read about it later because those 4 days are, there's 4 hours of the first round are just like so painstakingly hard to watch. But I do like to be on social media and like see it.
You're also welcome to come over here and watch with me if you can deal with the tears and shower cry that may happen after the second round pick.
I might come over to watch draft.
First pick.
I might come over to watch the draft with you just for the first and second pick and record you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Record watching Saquon Barkley. Guys, we got a great show today. We got Brian Malone's joining us. He is a contributor with Dynasty League Football, Dynasty Command, and Rotoviz. Bob, are you excited to have Brian on?
I'm very excited to have Brian on. I've been talking to Brian on Twitter for a while. I think recently, I forget who it was that tweeted it out, but they said that Brian is one of the smartest among us fantasy analysts, and I agree with that. Brian is definitely always putting out smart content, and I'm hyping him up, and he's shaking his head like, no, I'm not, but I swear he is. So if you're not following him, follow him at Brian Malone, I believe it's right.
Brian Malone, FF. Mike, would you say that Brian is the Blake Bortles of...
We'll go with that. Yeah, we'll say Brian is the Blake Bortles of the fantasy community on Twitter right now.
I'll accept that. That's a worthy praise, I think.
And with us right now, you just heard him. That is Brian. Brian, thanks for joining us today. We're just talking about the NFL draft, man. Are you excited? What do you got planned for Thursday? Anything?
I am excited, and I don't have plans. I'm going to be coaching kindergarten and first grade basketball practice when the draft starts, and I'm not sad about it at all. I'll hang out on Twitter, but that's about the best thing about the draft for me.
You said you're coaching first grade basketball. That's got to be exciting.
Yeah, it's making sure, like trying to get the cluster separated. That's basically my job, is like physically separating the kids from each other so they can pass the ball and such.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be a big cluster. I've never been a big basketball fan, but I've seen some, groups around that age, and it does seem to be quite the job to get the cluster separated. So, kudos to you, Brian.
Thanks.
All right, guys. So that's the end of the portion of the first grade basketball segment for this week. We got a great show. We're talking startups today. We're talking startup strategy, talking in Superflex, and obviously two quarterback leagues. I know I was corrected by you a couple weeks ago by that, so I apologize. I made that mistake. Before we get started with Brian giving us his expert opinion, he's got some awesome stuff. He made this amazing chart that was kind of curated from a bunch of different people on Twitter and other interweb sources, so we're excited to talk to him about that. Before we get started, we're going to dish you out some listener information on where you can follow us. And then let's get right into it. Let's talk not first grade basketball. Let's talk nothing but first picks in drafts. Mike, lead us off with your information, my friend.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter at Mike Jarvis, all one word. Nothing fancy. It's just my name. You can find me on Insta at Mike Jarvis, YNWA.
Mike dropping the Insta.
Yeah,
I love it.
Insta's new this week, I guess. I'm not dropping my Insta. So I guess there was a hashtag trending called My Twitter Handle Explained.
Oh, yeah, that was yesterday. That's trending yesterday.
And I said I always explain mine on the podcast, so I got to go with my usual line here of it's REKED Fantasy. I'm not trying to sound like a Twitter tough guy like John Bosch says I am. That's just my initials, although I do have a new team name in the Beat Bobby League, which auction just finished, and that is Twitter Tough Guy. So thank you, John Bosch, for the team name. And Brian, where can people find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at Brian Malone FF, and I do not have an Insta.
And guys, this is the Afterburners Pod. Follow us at Afterburners Pod on Twitter. Also, you can follow us on iTunes. Subscribe, download, rate us, give us that amazing 5-star rating, and then give us a nice burn because we are giant jabronis. Don't forget to follow us on Podbean and Stitcher as well.
And don't forget to follow Sam at The Needy One on Twitter. He has really funny tweets, if not always football relevant.
That is at THENEDIONE. And just as a side note, I had to explain my Twitter handle yesterday too, and people don't know that they say it's Netty One. It's actually pronounced The Needy One. And the reason it's needy is because it rhymes with what people called me on the basketball court growing up, which was greedy. So there we go. I was very greedy. I was taking shots, and I was missing a lot. Actually, was
that in first grade? Are we going back to first grade basketball?
I was like an 18-year-old playing with first graders, and they would beat me, unfortunately. So, but guys, we're excited. This is the first time we're doing this type of show. We're talking startup strategies. We've kind of hinted on it before. Bobby mentioned that we had a draft starting last week. It was a startup league. And one of the things we did this year was an auction draft. Bobby, why don't you get a little info about what we did this year with the draft?
So we had an auction draft. It's in a league called the Beat Bobby League, which was also titled by John Bosch. He seems to have a thing with calling me like a Twitter tough guy or just trying to make an entire league try to beat me. But most of us haven't been in auctions before. It was an interesting experience. The only experienced auction people there, I'd say, were basically John Bosch and Waz NFL. Yeah. But I didn't sleep. I don't know about you guys, but I'd be up at 3 a.m. bidding on players. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. I came out with a team I kind of like, and it was a super flex league. So very interested to hear what Brian has to say about his strategy in regards to quarterbacks.
Yeah, so Brian, first off, let me ask you a question. Have you done a bunch of auction startup leagues before?
I have only done, I think, one auction startup. Yeah, and I don't believe it was a super flex, so I don't have too much there, but I've certainly guided some people through auction startups with Dynasty Command, so that'll help too.
Mike, you're kind of trying to you're commissioning another league. Is it an auction league? I know it's going to be another startup league come up shortly.
Yeah, I haven't thought too much of it yet. I was going to have it as just a regular draft, but now I might have it as an auction draft if people are into it. As you know, Sam, I'm all about the auction draft when it comes to baseball because I think it generally gives you the best chance to form the team that you want. When you're doing just a regular snake draft or a regular draft, it's if you get, say, the 7th pick, you're like, well, fuck. Now I know I'm not going to get Odell Beckham. I'm not going to get Nuke. I'm not going to get, the top quarterback I want. Whereas if you're in an auction, if you really want that guy, there's nothing stopping you from going out and getting that top-tier guy that you really want. So, yeah, now that you say that, I definitely might have it as an auction, something to think about for sure.
Which type of draft do you guys prefer? Are you guys more of the standard, like snake redraft, or obviously if it's a dynasty you're not going to redraft, but more like a snake or an auction? What do you think, Bob? What do you prefer after now being through both?
I'm a snake guy because I know Sean's going to kill me for saying that, but I really like to have at least some idea of a strategy in mind. And auction, you can have a strategy, but it's a lot more adapting on the fly. I also don't necessarily like the fact that I didn't get to sleep because I couldn't shut down my brain because I kept thinking about the auction values.
No wonder you've been off Twitter. You've been on staring at the auction
sleep board. Deprived, or just staring at the auction board going, where can I sneak in another dollar value here? So I think I'm still a snake guy. I didn't mind the auction. It's definitely nice to change of pace, but I'm on Team Snake.
Brian, do you have any type of preference?
Yeah, I'm on the snake draft too, but for different reasons. I actually like auction drafting better than regular drafting, but I love trading during startup drafts so much, and you really miss out on that during the auction. So even though it's a little less fair, and it's a little bit harder to go get your guy, dealing with those trades while you're on the clock and while other people are on the clock, that's the most fun of the draft for me.
So if you were to do a snake draft, Brian, and let's say you're the commissioner, like you're in a league in which people are voting on how to make it as fair as possible to see who picks first and then who picks, through, all the way through 12 or 14 or 16, however many teams you have. What is one or two things you think would make it the most fair? Is it just voting, or like how would you go about like even starting that?
I think the best idea I've heard is you have an auction with real money to choose your startup spot. So you can, everybody pays their normal league fees, and then you can do a silent bid auction for the right to choose your slot first, and then the right to choose your slot second. And whoever pays the most gets first. Whoever pays the second most gets second. That seems pretty fair to me.
Mike, would you drop $100 to get the first pick?
100 American or 100 Canadian?
Oh man, I don't even know what the conversion rate is anymore. You make whatever's cheapest.
So that'd be Canadian. Yeah, I might drop 100 Canadian. That's neat. So in my home league, we've done it a couple different ways to figure out draft order. The one year I found a sample Wonderlic test online, and I had all the league mates do that. And so we went in order.
Whoever has the bottom. It's so
What's that?
Whoever has the worst score gets the worst draft pick.
Yep. So that was pretty fun. I finished second or third.
I would have given worst score the top draft pick. And the reason why is if the Wonderlic is testing your IQ, then it seems like they need the most help, right? So you'd give them the first pick to help them out because clearly they have some deficiency going on.
Or you just open up the floodgates to make fun of that person if they have the worst pick at number one.
Exactly. And what we've done the last couple of years is, as you know, I'm big into wrestling, and a lot of my friends are as well. We've each picked a character from WWE, and we've simulated the Royal Rumble on PlayStation, and so then it just goes in order of, if the first person who gets tossed out is the last pick, the last man standing is the first pick. And so
that's awesome.
And then I record it and post it on the league message board so everybody can see it. So it's neat as well because, you literally have no control. All you get to control is the character that you pick. And in which case, to do that, it goes in order of the standings. So the person who finishes first last year gets the first pick of the wrestlers. So
it almost makes it into like two separate events. You have the event, the Royal Rumble, but then then the Royal Rumble parlay that into like the draft.
Yeah,
I like that. So let's fast forward. So let's say, all right, we're in a brand new startup, right? So regardless of auction or snake, whichever one you want to choose. Brian, what are some of the things that go in your mind if you're in a 2-quarterback or superflex league? Are quarterbacks going to be like you're thinking you're going to pick them in the first, second round, a little higher? You picking them a little bit later? You want more value later? What's kind of your thought process?
This year, at least from the drafts I've seen, I've been seeing some of the top guys. So superflex, my top two guys are still Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. I'm not really into Wentz and Watson, at least that early. But if I see those guys in the middle of the second round, I'll go get them. After that, I'll wait and maybe grab a Phillip Rivers and a rookie and just try to get three guys that I can cobble together, one of them with some long-term upside and the other two I don't really care too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like you kind of understood my question. I didn't mean like my question in terms of like I meant obviously if it's an auction, you're paying more as opposed to like, hey, this isn't like somebody you're bidding on first.
So I was talking about a regular.
You was talking about snake.
Yeah, no, I think you got it. So you would bid more on your guys that you're going to get in the first or second round of a snake round, right?
Yeah. So if we're talking an auction, I would take a run at Wilson and Rodgers, but I'm not going to go crazy for them. But more likely, I'm going to sit back and try to scoop value later on.
Bobby, is that kind of in par with your strategy?
Yeah, that's pretty. Finding that I agree with a lot of Brian's takes, which, considering I called him one of the smartest earlier, probably suggests that I agree with a lot of his takes. But yeah,
well, since you prefaced it with saying that you agree with him a lot, you're calling yourself smart right there. So that was smart.
No. I'm saying he's smart, and I just absorb his opinion and pretend that it's my own, so that I can sound smart too. But yeah, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are my top quarterbacks as well. And whether it's auction or snake, I'll consider them, and I'd even consider them at the end of the first round. But after that, it's weird that he brought up Phillip Rivers because Phillip Rivers is my go-to like cheap QB1 guy. another guy that I really like to get later on that's pretty consistent is Matthew Stafford.
Yep.
But I'm definitely a sort of, if I miss out on my top two guys, wait on quarterback and just get value at wide receiver, especially kind of guy.
Mike, you were a champion, I believe, 1 or 2 years in the league that we were in. I think it was 1 year, right?
No, I was a no-time champion. I finished second both.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. I'm getting confused with baseball, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. So I'm glad to see that I am doing a good job with my pregame notes. What was your strategy? That was a 2-quarterback league. Are you kind of on par with, if it's one of the top 2 guys, like take them early, or are you just going homer with Drew Brees a little bit later?
Well, in that startup, I had the 3rd pick, I think it was, and I took Cam 3rd overall. So that would have been the summer of 2015. 16. The summer of 2016, I took Cam 3rd overall. With the idea if I was going to trade him, and eventually I did for luck, and that didn't really work out. But I want my quarterbacks, and I want my quarterbacks early. I know Bobby and I have had multiple discussions on this over the years, and we each have opinions that we're not going to change the other person for. And the reason I want the quarterbacks is, it's just like your real life team. You want your pivot. You want your guy who is going to be steady. I don't want to have to sit there and think, oh shit, I got to rely on. This is going to be a dig on your boy Sam. I don't want to have to sit there and rely on Ben. Hopefully, getting me.
Hey man, I cheer for him. He's not my boy.
Okay, I don't want to have to rely on him to hope in a prayer of getting 20 points or so. I want that guy who's more times than not, the guy like Aaron Rodgers, the guy like Cam, the guy like Wilson. In Dynasty, speaking of being a homer, Breeze doesn't get a lot of love anymore because he's only got a year, maybe 2 years left. So Breeze would be a guy who you'd probably be able to get later on and would give you some great value like Brian mentioned. But otherwise, I'm going all in. Give me a Wilson. I would take Wentz. I would take Wentz in the first round if I was in the startup dynasty right now. If it was a 2-quarterback or super flex league, I probably wouldn't go Watson, but I would go Wentz. I'd go Rodgers. I would go Wilson.
Yeah, Russ.
I would go Cam. Any of those guys, I would go in the first round of a startup.
So I kind of like I had a different strategy this year, so I just went really high on Russell Wilson. I said, you know what, like let me just go out there and go get him. Like we did an auction, obviously, and I just outbid everyone. I was like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get Russell Wilson. And because you could start 2 quarterbacks, the thought process is like, okay, I'll get Russell Wilson for a couple of years. And then to your credit, Bobby, you mentioned somebody who I was going to bring up, and that's Phillip Rivers, because the guy just puts –
That was Brian. Brian mentioned Phillip Rivers.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right. So Bobby and Brian, the killer bees. So I to your credit, Brian, like I love Phillip Rivers as a second quarterback on a team that has 2 stud quarterbacks. The guy just puts up numbers year in and year out.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers is a great quarterback too, who's going to give you quarterback 1 numbers.
All right, Brian, you got anything else to add there? Any other tidbits that you can teach any of the listeners out there that are starting a strategy for a startup league? It's a lot of starts that I said in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's good on the quarterbacks. Like, everybody's got their own approach.
The one thing that I'll say is I have changed my tune slightly to almost a middle ground between my old position, Mike, and where you're at. And the reason I say that is because I somewhat agree with you that more from a trading perspective or a drafting perspective, if you have your quarterback set, each year you can just focus on drafting the wide receivers or running backs that fall while other people take quarterbacks. So it does help to have your quarterbacks set. I just think that you can have them set later on than necessarily the first or second round. So I'm in somewhat in the middle now.
You brought up a good point about having them set and the draft in future years. And also, you've got 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you're playing in, you figure a 12-team league, so that's 24. You want to have a guy for a backup. If you end up having 3 or 4 guys, you can use that 3rd or 4th, hopefully 4th, and trade them for a king's ransom in some spots that you can use to fill in those holes, whether it be in running back, tight end, wide receiver, draft picks, whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah, as a final note too, I think it makes it incredibly useful to have three QBs, right, or even two QBs that you can count on, and there could be other teams in your league that are like, oh crap, like I don't even have a quarterback that's starting this week because they're all injured, or whatever. So there's that. So one thing I want to flip the script here a little bit that we want to get Brian's opinion on. Brian, you created this cool thing that we saw. I saw about 4 or 5 days ago, but this was maybe earlier this month, in which I think you had completed it. But it's this player value. You created a rookie pick value chart, and if you guys want, we're gonna pin this on our Twitter. It's at Afterburners Pod. We retweet and everything, and we'll post a picture of it so we can get your thoughts and kind of see what we're talking about. But Brian, can you kind of explain a little bit into what first off, what this is for the listeners, because obviously it's kind of your brainchild, and two, like where you got the idea from and how it can help when constructing your overall strategy.
Yeah, so I've always been a wisdom of the crowds guy, and last year I did a huge off-season Dynasty Values poll. Got a bunch of people to vote, but it was really long and it was messy. And this year I got smarter about it and had people submit answers, but I kind of randomized it so they were only answering 4 or 5 questions each. And so I got 500 responses, and I took them all together and used very simple math to figure out, okay, if this is what everybody says the 104 is compared to the 101, and this is what everybody says the 107 is compared to the 104, I got all those, put them together, and put them in a chart. So this is just what Dynasty Twitter thinks rookie picks are worth relative to each other. And then also as part of those polls, this is later, so if you go to that pinned tweet, you can scroll down. It has all, a bunch of top players, scattered in where they fit in between those rookie picks.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying it. To your credit too, it's also pinned at Brian Malone FF, so you want to check it out. So where can I find, like, if I'm creating a strategy, where would you say I would start here in formulating the thought process before a draft? Like, what would be the optimal? This is what I definitely need to do. Like, where can that value be drawn from somebody who's whether experienced or kind of a rookie? Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm all about, go get your guy, but don't reach for him. So this isn't going to help you. I'm not saying like, the real value in this draft is at 103 or the real value in this draft is at 107. My thinking is, if you want Darius Geis, this is what you need to pay for him. You need to pay the 105 plus the 104, whatever the chart says, and you should be paying about that much, but not much more. And, go get your guys, but pay the right price for him. And this is just going to help you pay the right price for him. Well said. You ever read the website 538?
Yes, all the time.
You're like the Nate Silver of making fantasy football polls right here, man. This is great. I love it. I absolutely love it. Bobby, what are your thoughts on this beautiful thing?
Yeah, it's great. Brian and I were talking about this before the show, but in my head, I have a system where when I'm trading, I equate players to first-round picks or to rookie picks if they're not worth the first. So, for example, Odell, Beckham, and DeAndre Hopkins are worth 4 firsts in my mind, and they're the only ones that are worth 4 firsts or the equivalent. But it's really cool to see it in chart form and also see it not influenced by my opinion. And I'm all about player values. So seeing actual players with values and what it is in rookie picks and knowing whether, based on Dynasty Twitter's opinion, I'm overpaying or not, I think is just so invaluable as a tool. And it's one of the reasons I said earlier that Brian is a great follow, because he constantly puts out content like that.
Mike, you're a guy who, when we talk about like proven commodities versus like somebody that's like a rookie, you're a guy who's about proven commodities. What are your first thoughts, knowing that, what are your first thoughts here when you see this chart?
It opens your eyes a little bit for sure. It's, maybe kind of rethink some things, but generally I find that there's always 1 or 2 guys in every league that will just give you stupid amounts of trade value for your rookie picks. And so if you're one of those guys who are probably projected to be a top 6 team or so, it makes sense to trade your rookie picks for as much as you can and get that proven guy, especially after the draft. Once you see landing spots, if there's a guy who, say Penny, who knows where Penny's going to land, but maybe he lands on that league mate of yours favorite squad. And he's got a couple, as I like to call them, old boring veterans who he's looking to unload. Conventional wisdom says he's worth one of those. Penny is worth one of those old boring veterans. You could use that your league mate's exuberance to get those old boring veterans for a guy like Penny, and you can basically double it. So yeah, take your rookie picks, turn them into commodities that you can use now, and go for that win.
Yeah, and Brian, what do you think of that? Or do you have anything to add there?
Well, it's not wrong. So I do think if you look at it just from a production standpoint, rookies are overvalued a bit. And the only players as a class that are more overvalued than rookies or people going into their rookie season is players coming out of their rookie season. So
Right.
My strategy tends to be, I'll trade my vets or whatever for future picks. I'll let them sit. I'll draft the rookies, let them go through their first season. And when they don't produce, most of them still retain their value pretty well. And then so Devontae Parker is ridiculous. How long is he going to retain his value? He has done nothing on the field.
And they just picked up a 5th year on the option too.
Yeah.
But still, usually you get a year or two of cushion. You see them do nothing, and you trade them to the league mates in July when they start getting all those hype pieces written about them.
Right.
That's very true. And what's interesting with Parker? At the beginning of this season, I'm not going to name names, but there are still some DLF staff writers that were still defending Parker. And we're 4 seasons into his career, and he hasn't done much. But I've noticed that as this offseason has gone on and they've seen public opinion just turn so adamantly against Parker, everyone has pretty much changed their tune.
Oh, really? Because I'm getting sucked back in. I'm starting to see they picked up his 5th-year option.
Well, I mean,
Mentally, I block that out, but emotionally, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what, this is going to be a year. This is it.
I mean, it gets to the point where the value gets so low because, like Bobby was saying, people are changing their tunes and souring on him. It gets to a point where the value is so low that you might as well jump on it because if he ever does reach his potential, then you've gotten yourself a fucking steal.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Laquan Treadwell. I got him for $1 in our auction, and I know he'll probably never be relevant, but there's part of me that just holds out hope, and I go, you know what? He's younger than Calvin Ridley. He can still do this.
Yep.
I had on Treadwell for 2 years, man.
Yeah.
And I got burned. Brian, you know what I like most about this chart? I like that you make it very clear that when you're describing 1.01 and 1.10, you're writing them as separate decimal points because that's what we all learned when we were in 3rd grade was decimal points. There are so many times on Twitter I see people put 1.1 and I'm like, why are you worried about the 10th pick in the first round?
Right.
So frustrating, but no, this is a great chart, guys.
That was an early afterburn.
I got a good burn, and that was not it. But I like where your head's at. I think this chart's great. One thing that, and we can make a little like maybe like a 4-question game here or something. One thing that Bobby said was there's pretty much only 2 players you said that are worth 4 first-round draft picks,
or the equivalent of 4 first round.
Or equivalent.
Yeah.
So what he means by that is if you're trading this player, then you get 4 first-round draft picks back. So
or the equivalent in player value.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, because the chart was so beautifully right up here.
Yep.
Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah.
So you're on board with Odell Beckham and Nuke?
I'm actually just on board with Beckham. And so I guess I should clarify this. The chart and that answer both are for 1 QB leagues. I think at least this season, the chart's going to change quite a bit when you get into Superflex. It flattens out the 102, 103, 104. Those are all worth a lot more relative to the 101 in Superflex.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, we didn't. I did a terrible job.
Yeah, my statement also is only for 1 QB because if we're talking 2 QB or Superflex, I'd add Russell Wilson as another guy who's worth 4th first, and Rodgers is just below that.
Cool. Good stuff. I love this chart. Like I said, guys, we will share this on our Twitter, and it's pinned on @BrianMaloneFF. And so we have this thing that we're talking about future first-round picks, right? So this is all we're talking about 2018. We have obviously these great quarterbacks coming out, these great running backs coming out. What would you say if you had the opportunity to trade future first rounds back into a startup draft you're doing, where it's like, hey, like this would be you're picking like a 2019 first round pick or a 2020 first round pick. Do you even think that's a viable strategy, Brian, or what are your thoughts on that?
Always go the other direction.
Yeah.
So I actually wrote an article last year where I kept trading back, and ended up accumulating like 6 extra future firsts. And I did that in 2 different leagues. One was an expert league and one was kind of a regular league. And I think the value's still there. People's discount rate, especially in the startup, is never higher than when they're in a startup. They get focused on winning this year, at least from what I've seen. And the other thing is the teams are never harder to predict than in a startup because everybody's competing, everybody's starting with the same amount of assets. So, the guy that thinks he's going to win it all could easily finish with the 101 next year. And that's not true in an established league. Like once you get in an established league, you get some dominant teams and you just know they're going to make the playoffs. Like there would have to be a complete catastrophe. So you get to bet against, these really smart guys who think they're taking all the right players and, hope that variance is on your side.
So what you're saying is I'm very happy with the team that I did because I think I'm going to win this year and next year, but I'm actually going to finish with the first pick next year. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that 10 people in your league are very happy with their teams and they all think they're going to finish. They're all going to win the league. And if I get 6 of their first, I'm going to have a pretty good odds of ending up with the 101.
We actually just saw what you're talking about because we have so many people that are talking about. Like
our friend Zach said, "I'm going to be the champion. Everyone should just give up." And he's always like that. And then I know I've been talking about him a lot this episode, but to his credit, John Bosch then said, "Okay, Zach, I will flip you all of my 19 picks for your 19 picks right now if you say yes." And Zach backed down and went, "Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if my picks are really going to be 112, and I don't know what your picks are going to be." And we went, "If you're going to be a future champion, you have to take that deal, right, Zach?" And he just backed off. So to John's credit, that was a complete baller move.
So you kind of agree with Brian's strategy.
Well, I should preface this by saying every first Dynasty League I ever played, I got suckered in that I was at the end of the first round. I didn't know what I was doing, and someone offered me to move up to like the 1.6 for
1.06.
1.06 for my 20. I think we started in 20. Yeah, my 2015 first and my 1.12. So I moved up. I drafted Demaryius Thomas. That team was garbage for a while. I've turned it around. You can actually check that out. Shameless self-plug on Dynasty League Football from Dumpster to Dynasty, Part 1 and Part 2, about how I traded a shit ton to turn that team into a not shit team.
I remember that article that you wrote.
Yep. And so now I'm the complete opposite, where I'm with Brian, where if I can acquire future first, I've learned from the guy who did that to me. I thank him for that lesson because it was a harsh lesson in Dynasty, but one that I needed.
So, Mike, I'm going to flip the question on you here a little bit. Let's say you've built the team in 2018, and you're banking on the fact that you're going to grab one of these quarterbacks that you like. Are you still going to follow that strategy where you kind of go backwards with the future first round picks there? Let's say it's like a 2019. I'm sorry, let me put the second part of that question. Let's say it's like a 2019 draft where the quarterback class doesn't look quite as good as the 2018 class.
So, sorry, I'm now confused on your question.
Yeah.
His question is, I think, would you trade from the 2019 class to get back into the 2018 class if you needed a quarterback because the 2018 class is a stronger class quarterback-wise than 2019? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Thank you. That's exactly what I meant to say, but I didn't.
There's a lot of variables. It would depend on, A, which pick I would be getting for the 2018 draft pick back, and B, how much I would have to give. If I was able to find an owner to do straight up like a 2019 for a 2018 first, then yes, I would do that. But if he was like, "Oh, I want your 2019 first and, a 2019 second," I probably wouldn't in that aspect. But yeah, like I said, if I was, for whatever reason, he was willing to do a 1-for-1, then, or he or she was willing to do a 1-for-1, then yes, absolutely, I would do it. But if he wanted 2 or 3 assets going back their way, no, I wouldn't.
Brian, does certain positions in draft class like that factor in your opinion here?
Yeah, a little bit. So in Superflex, I'm a little more hesitant. But in Superflex this year, I think you can trade the 201 or the 202 for a future first. I just did that in a Superflex league this past week, actually. I traded the 201 for a 2019 first, and I traded, I think, the 202 and the 212 for a 2019 first. So you can get by even a little cheaper. And I'm still doing that. Again, for the same reason, because if it ends up being a late first next year, then I probably lost out a little bit. But if things break badly, then I'm going to end up with the 104 in next year's draft class, which I'm sure is going to be better than this year's 201.
Yeah, and also just to add there, in Superflex, especially this year because of the possible 4 quarterbacks that can go in the first round, a lot of people are viewing that 201 as really like more of a mid to late first or the equivalent. Right. So trading that to 2019 makes a lot of sense. I'm sure in many leagues people will pay that price just to get towards the top of the second round this year.
Great stuff, guys. We're running a little bit low on time, so we got a couple things we want to hit on too. Obviously, we got our burns, but before that, this is our last show before the NFL draft starts. So we're going to play a quick little game. I didn't prep you for this, but I think we got time. And the game's going to be, this is who this team is taking in the first round. So who wants to go first? Don't jump at once.
Give me the easy one.
All right. Brian, and I'm glad you said you want to go first, because the only reason I was glad it was you is because you're wearing a Browns hat in your picture on Twitter. The Browns, with the first overall pick, are taking blank.
They're taking Sam Darnold. I just don't buy the Josh Allen bit. I think that it was Sam Darnold to begin with, and as we crept into draft season, then it became Allen, but I don't buy it. Usually teams, the first bit of buzz is what sticks, and I think it's coming back around to Darnold as well, even when you get to kind of national reporters who might have an ear to the ground.
He definitely looks like the front runner, so I think that's right, but we'll see on Thursday. Mike, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next.
All right. With the second, all right, so this is going to be a enter the player's name or the field. The second pick, the Giants are taking A, Saquon Barkley, or B, the field.
A.
You're sold on Barkley. You think he's going to be a Giant? I
do. And the only reason, well, there's 2 reasons. Because I think that they know that they definitely need help at running back. Jonathan Stewart is quite bad, and everything else that they have there is also quite bad. And B, I've been talking to Bobby on Twitter for probably about 4 years now or so, and it just doesn't, sporting wise, it doesn't seem like Bobby ever gets what he wants. And the fact that he wants Rosen so bad, it will not happen. So Barkley will be a Giant, and Bobby will cry.
That's a pretty accurate statement, actually, thinking about it. Wow. I never thought about that.
All right, Bobby, you're up. You're gonna bat third. You're our final contestant here. You ready?
Yeah.
By the end of the day, Thursday, Josh Rosen will be a blank.
New York Jet.
Oh, I think so too. Go ahead. How excited are you going to be a Jet fan?
So everybody knows I really love Rosen. I tweeted out earlier today that as soon as I know he's on a team I don't hate, he'll be my favorite quarterback in the NFL, which is true. And I watch Jet games anyway, just because I'm in the New York market and I'll watch any football game that's on. So the very first football game I ever watched was a Jets game. I'm not saying I'm going to become a Jets fan, but
Sounds like I'm going to buy you Rosen.
I do support them. So if he can't be a Giant, I actually wouldn't mind if he was a Jet, because at least then I could watch him. But I can't even be happy about that. I will shut off the TV at pick 2 if the Giants take a running back. And it's because, 1, the cap hit is going to be ridiculous.
It's going to be stupid.
And 2, they have an aging 37-year-old. I've said this before, but they have an aging 37-year-old quarterback who's just not good anymore. I'm sorry, Eli. I love you. I will always love you, but just go away already. You're done. It's fine. And if not, they should at least trade down. I hear the Cardinals are very interested in moving up. Maybe the Bills aren't anymore. But yeah, all right. That's it. I'm sorry. I had to get that in there. I would die a little bit on the inside if I didn't say it.
So it sounds like I'm going to have to come over with a Jets shirt and a little color a sign from CVS or something, or Walgreens or Dwayne Ready, and write like Josh Rosen on the front, number Josh Rosen on the back, and give it to you and take a picture.
You might at that point you might as well just show up with a Jags portal jersey, because I will. Tom Coughlin is my guy, and I will just change teams at that point. I won't. I love the Giants, but it would be pretty funny if you showed up with a Jags jersey. I
would feel bad for you if Rosen's in New York, but he's not a Giant, sadly. So, guys, this was fun. Let's see. We've got some afterburners of the week. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go for it, Mike. Start us off hot, baby.
What happened in Kitchener this week, Mike?
Nothing happened in Kitchener this week. It was actually a pretty good week. So my afterburn of the week is fantasy relevant. And it's not fantasy football relevant, but it's fantasy relevant in general. I fucking can't stand it when you send an offer to an owner and either A, it just sits there for, days and days, and that person's fucking looking at their team. Or B, they reject it with no explanation, just a flat out reject.
That's brutal.
At least give me an explanation as to why you reject it. Say, no, you're fucking offering me garbage for a stud. Or no, I don't want to move this player. Or, if we, tweak this as opposed to this, let me know. Some people aren't very active, and so you don't have the opportunity to kind of engage with them firsthand. Say, oh, hey, would you be open to moving player X, and what would it take? So, you're just throwing some feelers out. But yeah, the people who don't either respond to the offers or the reject with no explanation, you guys are the fucking worst when it comes to the fantasy community.
I would also, I agree with you mostly. I think when I get a terrible offer, I at least write and I don't counteroffer. I don't want to counteroffer, because if you offer me something terrible, I'll write it in there. Like, dude, we're not even close. Like,
right.
Come back with something strong. That's what I'll write.
Let me know that we're not close. And that's fine.
Bobby, you got a burn?
Yeah, I guess. So this is, people in one of my leagues know this has been ongoing. I've had a lot of issues with doctors lately and not showing up on time for their appointments. This one in particular is bad, though. So I have a doctor who each time for the past 6 months, I just have had a regular checkup appointment with them. And each time the day before, they'll call to reschedule it. And then this most recent time, I had an appointment today. They called, they rescheduled it, but they rescheduled it to later today. So I showed up, and then for an hour or so, the doctor didn't show up at all. He was at an appointment himself, and I went to the receptionist and said, I think I have to reschedule. And they said, okay, the doctor's going to be in any minute. We can sit you right down. And I said, no, I would like to reschedule. Then they said, he'll call you. And I said, okay, whatever. He hasn't called me. So long story short.
Why won't he call back?
I am done with the doctor because, I get it. Mine was just a checkup, and maybe he had some other major issues he was dealing with or whatever. But if you're a doctor and you can't find time for me within a 6-month period, that doesn't give me any trust in your ability to take care of me when I actually have a serious issue. So to that doctor, who shall go nameless because I'm not here to besmirch people, I will be finding a new doctor's office. I will be requesting whatever papers and whatever you have on me, because you have lost me as a client.
You have the worst luck with any type of errand that you have to run.
Yeah, that's accurate. I'm also just too patient, where I'll complain in Twitter chats about people keep taking up my time, but I'm always like, no, it's okay, don't worry about it. When on the inside, I'm like, rage, I'm going to kill you. So
because you're a tough guy.
Yeah, that's my inner Twitter tough guy coming out.
I have to be honest, I'm not happy that you are getting screwed over by all of these different businesses. But I have to say, every time I see that message in the chat that you are waiting an extra 30 minutes, I get a little bit of a chuckle. I'm sorry, it's not nice, but I do get a little bit of a chuckle. It's only Bobby.
Yeah, I have a Ohio personality in New York City, and it doesn't work, even though I've never been to Ohio.
Well, we all know you should never ever go to Cleveland. That's a fact. I got a quick one here, boys. It's sports related. It's actually hockey related. Monday, my Capitals advanced to the second round. Of course, we'll probably lose to the Penguins, but that's okay because we advanced to the second round. Won 4 straight games. In the middle of Game 6, which was the clinching series game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, in the first intermission, the sideline reporter, I think his name is Tashik El Barrier from the Capitals, interviews Dmitry Orlov, and one of his questions is, Dmitry, you're best friends with enter Columbus Blue Jacket name here. Is there anything you're going to do? Are you talking to him during the game to try to convince him to come over in free agency in 2019? Yes, Tariq, because in the middle of a series-clinching game, that's the first thing that comes into a professional athlete's head is, how can I affect free agency next year instead of worrying about a playoff game right now? So that's my burn. That was terrible sports broadcasting and sports reporting, which we see pretty much on the ray throughout every sport. So
yeah, sports broadcasters are generally not good.
Definitely terrible. So finishing up, batting last and cleanup is Brian. He's going to give his burn of the week or the day, or maybe it's us. Who knows?
Maybe.
All right, so I'm going to go with a burn of the offseason Dynasty Fantasy Football, and I'm going to do it on behalf of all the people in leagues that I commission, and they're going to burn me for being such a shit-ass commissioner. No, if the payment deadline is March 1st, then you should probably set up League Safe at least by March 1st so that they can actually get a chance to pay their league. And I shouldn't be emailing 2 days before the rookie draft reminding people that they need to pay. And, oh, by the way, I just paid 6 weeks late. So if you sign up to be a commissioner, do your damn job.
Wow.
I like
think
it, man.
That may be the first self-burn. We'll have to note it in history.
I burned myself 2 weeks ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
All right.
Because of the chick when I was interviewing for the job.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about your escapades. Well, Brian, thank you for burning yourself, because that just let me know that if you ever ask me to be in one of your leagues, I should politely decline.
Absolutely.
I do have to say this has been fun. I do want to give a quick shout out. Zach Wilkins at Lopsided Trades has. I know he's not listening to this at all whatsoever. Has done a phenomenal job with our league so far as commissioner. So on a side note to the commissioner burn, Zach, you were not in any contention of being burned by me this last week.
Yeah, the anti-burn.
Completely amazing. So we really appreciate all the hard work, especially when my fantasy league went down for about 12 hours. You did a really good job.
My fantasy league went down in the middle of our auction, and Zach had to make some tough decisions and did an excellent job of it. So shout out to you, buddy.
Definitely. So guys, with that, we are out of time. Brian, it was nice having you, man. You ever want to come back?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Yeah, you did a great job. So go ahead, let us know where the people can find you, and then Bobby and Mike are going to send us home.
You can find me at Brian Malone FF on Twitter, and you can come hang out at the Dynasty Command Center, where I spend probably too much time every day.
You can find me on Twitter at Mike Jarvis. You can find me on Insta at Mike Jarvis YNWA. There's not much there other than pictures of my cats. And Bobby, over to you.
You can find me on Twitter at Wrecked Fantasy. Lately, I haven't been on quite as much because I'm getting married in about 18 days, and I've been dealing with some of that as well as just a few other things. Mostly, I've honestly been playing the show. If you have PS4, you can add me and probably message me there, and I'll probably respond. You can also find my work at DLF Football as well as 2QBs. And Sam, take us home.
Yeah, I'd say you spend most of your time at the show or waiting at doctors' offices, waiting to be
accurate.
Measured at Men's Warehouse. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Of course, this is the Afterburners Podcast. Find us at Afterburners Pod, YouTube Afterburners Podcast. You can email us the afterburnerspodcast@gmail.com. I am at the Needy One. Don't forget to download, subscribe, review to iTunes, and as well on Podbean and Stitcher, so that every new episode comes directly to your headphones, and you won't have to wait to see the update that our terrible social media guru does, and is completely great at putting out episodes super, super late. Thanks again for listening. Great luck in all your new startup leagues. If you're in a startup league, if you're in draft coming up, good luck there too as well. Enjoy yourselves on Thursday when you see your real life team pick a fantasy player that is going to suck.
And if you see the Giants draft someone that's not a quarterback, don't tweet at me unless you want an angry response. Until next time, keep it classy, Fantasy Twitter. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.